Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of TEMA Talk. I'm your host Carl Gibbons, founder of Third Eye Management and Associates. Loved by everybody, I hope, as TEMA. Anyway, joining us today is our special guest, Frank Cipolla. Frank is a former radio and TV news broadcaster who's been seen and heard on the New York markets now for over 40 years. Frank began his on-air career at several small radio stations in and around New Jersey. In the mid-80s, Frank was hired as the news anchor for the Soupy Sales radio show on WNBC AM in New York City. Now, I'm reliably told by everybody that's in the know, as soon as I say Soupy Sales, you're all going to go, that's the guy. All right. Me, not a clue. All right. He also worked with Imus in the Morning, Howard Stern, filling in for Imus. He's done it all, okay? Later, he worked as a reporter on NBC Radio Network before moving into local TV news. First as a host on Staten Island Live, and then as the co-host of the popular morning show on News 12 in New Jersey. In 2001, he moved over to WWOR TV Channel 9 in New York City, where he worked as a reporter and anchor. Frank most recently was heard on the Wall Street Journal radio network. He's lived in Naples now, Naples, Florida, full-time since 2017, and even worked for a short time as an investigative reporter for Fox 4 down here in the Fort Myers area. But now, Frank's claim to fame is that he owns a media coaching company and also operates a guest placement company, which is called Contacts Media. He's also the author of It Even Shocked Us, a look at the funny behind-the-scenes stories for many years in his radio and TV life. Frank, welcome to the show.
Well, I think we have to end the show because that took about 30
minutes. I was gonna say, yeah. I need to speak to somebody in the back office and say, look, you got to get this down.
Exactly. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on the show. And Carl, you know, I love your company. You've given me some wonderful advice as I've grown it. So thank you for that. And I'm happy to be here.
It's my pleasure. Now, look, Frank, here's the bottom line. We're in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic, and we've just got more than ever because we're all cocooned. We've got nowhere to go. You're talking to me from your home office. I'm talking to you from my home office. Probably all my viewers are all listening at their home office. Okay. Mm-hmm. All we've got really, apart from this phenomenal show, is the media, right? Who do we believe? What do we do? Where do we go? It's just 24 hours a day, 365, 24 hours, whatever the criteria you want to use. It's coronavirus. How's this crisis changed the news dynamic? Who do we believe? Who don't we believe?
No, you know, this is one of these transformational events. This is the 9/11 again. This is the explosion of the space shuttle. For some who are older, this is the Kennedy assassination. It just sucks all the air out of the room, Carl, and every story, or 95% of the stories, have to have some sort of a hook. And I've been in newsrooms when this has happened, and it's a all hands on deck situation. The only thing that matters is that particular story, and in this case, the coronavirus. And the only stories that break through really are stories that have a hook to the coronavirus. So, you know, it's one of these really transformational events. For young reporters, it's a wonderful time for them to learn. For older reporters, it's a wonderful time for them to teach what happens during this time. You have to remain calm, gather up the facts, and do your job, sometimes without thinking because you're going 24 hours a day.
Right. But what responsibility does the media have when they're breaking stories like this? Because, you know, we've all heard it, and there's no point in us trying to dodge the bullet. You know, there's the good news, the bad News, the ugly news, and sadly now we've got the fake news, right? We do. It's been proven. So what responsibility does the media have in their reporting when they're breaking stuff like this?
Well, first and foremost, the media has to broadcast the facts. Now, easier said than done. Years ago, and we're old enough to remember, there were 2 or 3 stations in your market, and we had people like Cronkite and Rather and John Chancellor and, you know, Tom Brokaw, and these were the men and women that we looked to give us the facts. Right. But now, not only do you have cable news and slanted in one way or another, but you have quote unquote citizen journalists who might hear something and post it online. And now we're finding in the last few years, we have outside actors who are flooding the internet and social media with the disinformation. The responsibility of the reporter has always been to find the facts and report the facts and not make yourself part of the story. That's it.
Right.
But
Because we've all got one of these now, right? We've all got one of these. So
you're right.
Click, 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 click. We're all in it.
But what's missing from one of these is the editorial, the men and women with experience who become the gatekeepers of that information. Now, I like the fact that if there's a fire or if there's a car accident, there's someone there who can take some video. But that young man or woman might say, or that older man or woman might say, what happened? 2 people died. Oh, okay. And they start going online with no verification whatsoever. Maybe they heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody. Now, if I'm in a newsroom and I'm an assignment editor or I'm an editor or publisher or manager, I would say, hold on a second. Where did this information come from? Who told you? Was it a police officer? Was it an official? Was it or was it the guy who just happened to hear it from somebody else or heard it from somebody else? What's missing is that last filter that before it goes out there. And what you get is a lot of not only disinformation, but you get a lot of information and you have to sort through it.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you, Frank, is, if you like, we've got the good guys and we've got the bad guys, right? And so what happens, what do the good guys do when they get conflicting information? How do they disseminate it? How do they decide whether that guy that was on the spot, the Johnny on the spot with his phone, and he said 2 people got killed and submits that 30-second video or those pictures or whatever it is, or not? How do they do that?
Well, the answer to that question is there is a tremendous amount of pressure now to get it out there, sometimes without verifying those facts. And the pressure is on that editor to give the yes or no to report what he has heard or seen, or his reporter has heard or seen, and get it out there more quickly or as quickly as the other stations. And I think to the detriment of the news industry, because now it doesn't become, is it factual? It becomes who was on first, who got it out there first, who reported it first, and so on. I still think that the major companies, the networks, NBC and CBS and ABC, and there's to a certain degree, CNN and Fox and so on, look for, accurate information. But there are holes in there now where you can slip through and get information that is not correct. And we've seen it more and more. Right. I mean, just recently we've seen reports that have been retracted because there was misinformation. And it's really, that is probably the most difficult thing of doing news, to make that decision based on one person's word or 2 people's words and so on. You and I are old enough to remember, I remember when I first started, we couldn't report anything on the air unless it was verified by 3 people.
3 people, right.
If you watch the old movie, All the President's Men,
yeah.
You see them trying to get 3 people to confirm something. Yeah. Nowadays, if that guy at the car accident who happened to see 2 ambulances pull away says 2 people died, sometimes that's good enough for a young reporter who doesn't have the experience or somebody that just wants to get it out there. And again, I think that's a detriment to the entire news industry.
Okay, what about the people that say it's all about the ratings, right? It's all about, we've got to be either the first to break the news or make the news as sensational as possible, so we get the eyes on the box, okay, or the eyes on the machine.
Well, the question is, I'm sorry I interrupted.
Well, that's okay. How important and does the ratings factor bottle into this?
Well,
if I can make it by just being a little bit, shall I say, careful with the truth, but it makes it a more sensational story, I will get more eyeballs on the screen, as opposed to the truth.
Let's keep in mind, with all due respect to the industry that I love, that it's called the news business for a reason.
Yep.
It's called the news business because you're absolutely right, Carl. Ratings matter. Ratings equal money from advertisers, and it makes everyone happy. Sadly, I think a lot of stories are sensationalized when they don't need to be because they stand on the facts themselves, or they are sensationalized because they needed to be, quote unquote, jazzed up a little bit. And I think sometimes that makes the reporter look foolish. I think it makes sometimes it makes the station look foolish. But to answer your question, yeah, ratings mean everything. We're seeing right now, just this week, that Entercom, which owns a series of radio stations, a few hundred radio stations coast to coast, is now cutting back. They're cutting back because of the coronavirus outbreak and everything associated with that, but they're also cutting back because they see an opportunity here to trim the sales, and also because revenue is down because fewer people are advertising. Now, if they were truly committed, and I'm not saying that they aren't, but if any company was truly committed, they say, you know what, let's take the loss. It's more important that we get information out there. But, you know, there are accountants in the companies. There are accountants on site at these TV stations, and they want to know where every penny's going. So to answer your question, ratings matter. They matter more than anything. News years ago was a loss leader. I think William Paley, who was the head of CBS, said, I don't expect to make money on news. It's just there for the prestige and the information it provides, period. But nowadays it has to make money.
Now, it's interesting you should say that, because one of my two favorite TV programs of all time is The West Wing and then The Newsroom, both of which written by Aaron Sorkin, who I think is probably the greatest living writer that there is at the moment. But that's a whole that's a conversation for another day, right? But when I'm watching The Newsroom, I see that there was that battle between the fifth floor, as it were, who were just looking for the ratings and for the numbers and the integrity of the newsroom reporting, and I always find that dynamic, that push-pull, and it was interesting, and I totally understand that it's a fictitious show, but there was this, the more pure the news became and the more factual it became, it turned out even within the story, their ratings went up because people trusted what they were hearing as opposed to chasing an advertiser or shareholder's dollar. So I get where your point. And that brings me on to the next little bit is where and how much does fear play into the reaction of the viewer? I mean, are they looking to scare us? Are they looking to jolt us into a reaction, paralyze us with fear? Because at the moment, as I see it, the fear factor can almost be as contagious as the coronavirus itself. It can paralyze us.
Well, you know, news is conflict. News is fear. News is worry. The mom who can't find her daughter, or dad who wandered away because he has Alzheimer's disease. Fear is the coronavirus. You don't know when this is going to end, how it's going to end, how life will change after this. So a lot of news is based in fear. I will tell you as a reporter that the one thing I did that really irked me is when I went out on a story and I had somebody nailed. Everything was done and I was ready for the ambush interview. Right. And really to catch this slimy person. And he said, look, you know what? I made a mistake, you know, and I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry that I'll make good. That the conflict was gone. Removing the conflict was gone. Right. But, you know, a lot of these stories are based in fears. And when you sit in an editorial meeting, you'll say, hey, I got a phone call from such and such. And I have a theory. I don't know if it's ever been promulgated, but I have a theory. My theory is as follows. Viewers often like to see reports that are based on fear, because when it's done, they say, you know what, my life might be difficult. It might be a struggle, but at least it's not as bad as that person who today can't find their daughter. So in a bizarre, macabre way, it gives them some hope, and it gives them some, feeling that the world is a better place, at least in their world.
Right. It's almost like when we're driving, the people that watch the car crash.
Oh, yes. Yes. And, you know, and they slow down. That always befuddled me, quite frankly, but they do slow down to see it. But you know, what they're saying in their head is, you know, that could have been me and it's not. So I'm having a good day.
Right. So what do you consider to be good sources of information at the moment?
Well, you know, there's a lot out there. Let's take the coronavirus as an example. There is plenty of information out there online, some of it factual, some of it not. Sources, you hear stuff from your friends. I think in these complicated times in which we have this transformational event, that the best place to go is to the source, and not just to watch it, to read, to go on the CDC website, get some information from them. Because when it comes from them, it goes into the sausage machine, And on one network, it comes out this way, and on another network, it comes out that way, and it's twisted that way and twisted that way. And then the president might come to the podium and spin it this way or that way. The best, and I've said this before to many of my friends, look, don't just watch one station. Don't just read one source of information, but by all means, read the entire article. Get the information into your head, and don't think you can take a complicated coronavirus incident and put it on a bumper sticker. It's a hoax, or, it's a plot, or the Chinese really, it's not that. News often falls into the gray areas, and you really have to decide yourself. That's the definition of news. We present the facts, you decide.
Right. So it's a little bit like the old news guy, the paper news guy, read behind the headlines, read behind the soundbite. Look deeper than the soundbite. I got it. Because the soundbite's the hook, right? That's what gets you in. It's like the headline on the newspaper. That's what gets you in. What are newspapers? Who has newspapers anymore?
I don't know what you're referring to. I was walking my dog today, and I saw a house with a newspaper that had been delivered earlier this morning, and I said, "That's the guy." There was one guy in the entire community that had a newspaper in front of us.
I have to tell you, just a slight digress here. I have the Wall Street Journal delivered every morning, not because it's the Wall Street Journal. I just like that tactileness of the paper. And nine times out of 10, as soon as I've looked at it, when I want to repost something or share something with people, this is where I come straight to the internet. But I just like that. I just like that rustle.
Yeah, there are some people of a certain age, I do too, where you like to sit down and read a newspaper.
I hear you.
It's something in your hand as opposed to.
I gotcha. I totally agree. So, what sources we've talked about? What are the good sources? Where shouldn't we be going? What shouldn't we be looking at?
I don't think you should be going online to get your information. I mean, from your Facebook. Let's use Facebook as an example, okay, Carl? Yeah. I don't think you should be going to Facebook, because I'm not. There's nobody at Facebook who's saying, "Hold on, are these facts checked?" What they're essentially doing is they're taking a news article from anywhere that might be posted and posting it online. Right. I think in these particular times, you go to sources that have been dependable in the past, whatever that newspaper has been, whatever that local newspaper has been, right. The newspaper that you can depend on, the television station and or the anchor who has never steered you wrong. Right. That's where you go in times like this. You go to the radio to an all, but I don't think you get it off Facebook. I think social media is a problem because it doesn't have a filter. It's a water hose, it's a fire hose that shoots all over the place, and nobody really gets the facts.
It's just gossip, basically, in essence.
Well, and we love that. I know
it's good old fashioned. It's good.
Page 6.
If you're from the UK, it's page 3, but it's the same thing.
Okay.
All right.
You know what I'm talking about.
So, what happens to the news industry next? Now that broadcast companies have seen the effect of this new model with everybody becoming the instant reporter. We've now got cable channels that go on forever, right? And there's nothing we can't do. And there's nothing we can't find out. Again, good, bad, ugly, and fake.
Right.
So what's the future of the TV news industry going to look like?
Well, I think that the coronavirus, as far as my industry is concerned, is again another transformational event. And let me explain. The FCC about 2 or 3 years ago ruled that a radio station does not have to have a physical presence in the town or city in which it serves. That means that the disc jockey is in San Diego and he's broadcasting to the folks in Chicago, and it really doesn't matter anymore. Right. I'm making a prediction now. My prediction is as follows. When the outbreak subsides, the broadcast companies right now are using this model free of union interference, especially in the larger markets, to test this model to find out if they can indeed produce an entire newscast without anybody being at a physical station. And that benefits them several ways. First, they don't have any electricity bills. They don't have any air conditioning bills. They don't have a big expensive building. They don't have a studio. They don't have to light the studio. They're going to put a green screen in the anchor's house. They're going to put a green screen in the weatherman's house. They're going to put a green screen in the sports guy's house. And they'll figure out how to switch from scene to scene to scene remotely. Right. And they will be broadcasting a newscast from maybe 20 homes every night. Everybody will gather around their computer and do it. Now that benefits the broadcast companies because they could sell that building. They don't need that property anymore.
Right.
They'll get a small storefront with a green screen when they want to interview the mayor. And the mayor will sit down in front of a green screen and the anchor will interview him. And the sales department will meet there now and again just so they remember what they look like. Right. But I think that's, again, a detriment to the news business because the creativity, Carl, the creativity in this business is always comes with the union of people meeting, talking, right, gathering in these meetings.
Yeah.
And we're doing a Zoom here. You do a Zoom with 20 people, I think you lose something.
You do. It's interesting you should say that because I was watching the Today Show this morning, and that's exactly what they're doing. You know, Savannah's at home, and the news, the weather guys at home, and all the other guys at home, and they're just switching between the two. And now, as the CEO of the company, I'm agreeing with you because I don't think it's just going to be the news industry, Frank. I think every CEO in this country is going to go, just a minute, I pay, insert the number, a month rent for this property. Yeah. And for the last X months, all my people have worked from home. We've had a few glitches. We might have to invest in some new technology and that kind of stuff. But on the whole, we're still here. Why do I want to start paying that X a month rent again? Let's just call it a day and move on. And again, full circle, when people get spoken to originally about the concept of working from home, there was that fear factor. Well, now they've almost had that, not almost, they've had that enforced upon them. And they're now going, actually, this isn't so bad. Yeah. You and I are having a business meeting now, right? I mean, hey, that's not so bad. All right. Maybe that you're right. There isn't a cup of coffee or there isn't a gin and tonic or a glass of wine or a nice lunch in it, but the wheels are still turning, right?
That's right. And the news is still going on. And look at the station in Des Moines or Topeka. Yeah. Let's say Carl Gibbons owns a station in Topeka and it generates X every year. Okay. Now you've been forced to do this remotely, and it's not as good, but it will get better. It'll look better as time goes on because they're working on the technology right now. And Carl will say, you know what? The car dealership down the block has been begging me to buy this building. What do I have that building for? Let me sell it to them. I could work out of my house and everybody's happy. Will anybody know? Probably not. I'll get a small storefront on Main Street. It'll have our call letters on front. Somebody wants to come in and drop something off. That's where they'll do it. That's exactly what's going to happen. And again, I think that's bad because, you know, I've come up with a lot of great ideas when I was a news person. I always wanted to bounce it off people, you know? Yeah. And just as a footnote to that, you'll be working 24/7 because now that they have access to your computer, you're never off. They'll be texting you at 9 o'clock at night. Hey, can you pop on the Zoom right now? I have a question for you. So, you know, I could almost write the press release. Right. I could almost write the press release that will say, in order to give you more time with your family, we are now going to produce the newscast from home. We think it's a better model. You'll enjoy it, so on and so forth.
I hear you. So I want you to put your Contacts Media CEO head on now. Okay. Not your news reporter head on. How do you think business is going to change up when we come out of this, when we come out of the lockdown, when we come out of coronavirus? How do you think business in general is going to change?
Well, I think a lot more work is going to be done remotely. I can tell you that a lot of people have asked me, how is your business? As you mentioned at the top, I book guests on TV and radio stations all around the country and on the networks. And no more than 3 or 4 years ago, when I had a client on Fox or CNN or MSNBC, they'd say, where is he? Okay, he's in Wayne, New Jersey. All right, we're going to send a car at 4 p.m. He's got to be here at 6:30 and so on. I usually said, hey, would you try a Skype? No. We want him in person. Now that people visually are accepting more and more Skype interviews, here's another savings for the owner of that network. He doesn't have to pay that limo service yearly, X amount of dollars to go pick up people all around the New York metropolitan area. So I think there will be more and more Skype interviews. I think. Come on,
Frank, the only reason I do it is for the Learjet and the stretch limo. You can't take that away from me.
And everything else, which we won't mention. No, I'm only kidding. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You do that for the first class, ticket. And I think that's going away. I think right now, or I should say, as soon as this is over and they have the first big technical meeting for the news, the convention in Orlando, the convention, they're going to have equipment that we can't even envision right now, which will make it look like you're sitting next to the host when you're not, period.
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, so we're back to technology, is what you're saying. Technology is going to be, as it has been throughout the latter part of the last century, and certainly the beginning of it.
Well, I've been busier.
Technology is driving the bus.
You ask about contacts media. I've been busier because I have clients who might not live in the New York metropolitan area, but they're willing to talk with them now, even though they're not nearby. And therefore the bookings have gone up, because generally they would say, well, can he be in studio? No. Can he be via satellite? Well, they don't have to pay for satellite. Some of them say, forget about it. We'll get somebody nearby. We'll send a car for him. Now I have been busier.
So for Contacts Media, as the CEO of Contacts Media, this is happy dance, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is real good stuff because, I have a client in Long Island City, Queens, a hop, skip, and a jump into Manhattan. And I had a reporter in New York the other day say, look, I'm working from home. There is no station right now. Just have them Skype with me, a FaceTime with me. And she was somewhere in New Jersey, and it all worked out just fine. So
that's great. Okay, Frank, I'm going to change track a little bit now, and I'm going to throw you a couple of curveballs. All right, and let's see how we go. You're not going
to ask me what is my definition of love or something like that.
No. Oh, much better than that. Much better than that. All right. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of business advice. I think the best piece of business advice is to always be available. I mean, my clients can call me at 11:30 at night, at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I pick up the phone on one ring. And that says, I respect your phone call and I'm there for you always. To me, that's always been the meaning of my success, at least. How can I get to that client quickly and make that client happy? And that probably was the best piece of advice I got. I knew it going in, but people said, look, always be there for them. And unless I'm sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can always call me.
So, and in your entrepreneurial career, what's been your biggest misstep or mistake that you've made? The one that, like, if you could rewind, no, never. If I could just rewind that clock, rewind that.
Like every good business person, I've made all the same mistakes, maybe twice.
Okay.
I can't think of one off the top of my head. A few of my clients I would have wanted back, but for some reason it just didn't work out. I can't think of a specific one, but you learn from your mistakes. And I've been doing this almost over a decade. My company was created in 2009. So I think every day I get better at doing it. And I always reach out for advice. You and I have had conversations. I'm always looking for, the people who are ahead of me to tell me, you should be doing this. And I take notes too. But, I can't think of any specific one, but there are plenty. There are plenty.
Has there been a book? What's the best business book that you've read, or the best business book that's had an effect on you? Apart from your own, that doesn't count.
Oh, I can't plug my own.
No.
Well, you know what?
You can't plug. It even shocked us. Available at all good bookstores or online, or even at Amazon.com. No, you can't plug that.
Okay. I'm a people person. In fact, this coronavirus to me is the worst thing that could happen, because I'm a hugger and I'm a handshaker.
Yeah.
And I like, even when I can resolve issues online with a company that I might have to, I always like to hear somebody's voice or meet them in person. So I don't read a lot of business books. I do sit down and have a lot of conversations with business people like yourself and others, and I ask them advice. And I think that's better. That one-on-one communication is much better than reading a book. So I haven't read a whole heck of a lot of business books over the years, but I've asked tons of questions of business people.
Right. I often share with people, I don't read a lot. In fact, I will share with you that the fastest way to put me to sleep is to make me read a book. I'm gone by page 2, and it can be the middle of the day and I'm gone.
Really?
I'm a big audiobook guy.
Okay.
The car, all the while, if I'm not doing this, as it were, what's the next thing to come through this will be an audiobook. So I highly recommend that. You might want to try it out. So we're coming almost now to the end of our interview. So here's my last one for you, Frank. Do you want to be in control, or do you want to be in charge, and why?
another great question. Do I want to be in control or do I want to be in charge, and why? You know, I think we have had this discussion recently because I've been a control freak most of my life, you know. And it's the
You
same thing
think?
yeah, it's the same thing with my business. And it is at times all consuming, like today was. I just was able to sit down in front of this computer 5 minutes before we started chatting. But I think I would, let me add another word to that. Control, in charge, I think I would like to oversee.
Okay.
My goal is to oversee. I think a very smart business person I met years ago said, the definition of success is when you're making money while you're sleeping. That is the definition of success, where you have other people working on your behalf and everybody pulling in the same direction. So I would add the word overseer. I would like to look at the whole thing from 30,000 feet, but I'd like to also get my hands dirty. And a lot of times I'm in the muck of it when I shouldn't be, and I need to delegate more. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my answer.
You did. You answered it in true newspaper man style or TV anchor style. You didn't give me an answer at all. All right, okay. Frank, if anybody wants to get hold of you or check out Contacts Media, where do they go? How can they get hold of you?
It's very easy. All you have to do is go to Contacts with an S, like contact lenses, but Contacts with an S, contactsmedia.com. So it's one word, contactsmedia.com. Or you can call me directly. I'll pick up my phone on one ring at 908-670-9500, 908-670-9500.
Frank, thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are, especially given the current circumstances. And I'm happy for you. I'm not happy about the circumstances, but I'm happy for you because, like we say, there's always opportunities out there. When a door closes for somebody, it opens for somebody else. So Frank, thank you very much for your time. I really, really do appreciate it. That's it, folks. That's the end of another TEMA Talks. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've certainly tried to dig a little bit into what's going on with the media, especially the news media. I hope Frank's he's made it a lot clearer for me. I hope he's made it clearer for you. So until our next episode, I want you to all stay safe, be kind to each other, don't murder the wife, don't murder the husband, whatever it is, just be good, all right? And we'll see you next time. So with that, this is Carl Gibbons from TEMA Talk, and we are out.